Fox 10 Phoenix, Arizona news anchor Kari resigned from her job today and did so in a speech that she released on Rumble. I'm going to play the video that she made for you in its entirety, and then we're going to talk about it for a second, and we'll kind of spitball about what do you think the reasoning is behind her resignation. And then we're going to look at this USA Today article. We're going to kind of see if we can suss out what really happened, which USA Today makes it very difficult to do that. Okay, so we're going to play this recording all the way through, and we'll talk about it at the end.
Hi, everybody. I've got some news I want to share with you, since so many of you have sent me messages while I've been on leave asking me how I'm doing or when I'll be back. Many of you left kind messages telling me that you miss me. I appreciate all of the messages, and I miss you too. This time away from work has given me a chance to reflect on my work. 22 years ago, Fox 10 hired me and paired me up with John Hook to bring you the news every night. Shortly after becoming a team, we jumped in the ratings, and we've held the #1 spot for almost all of our time together. Anyone who's worked in TV news can tell you that is not an easy feat, and it's one I'm extremely proud of. And I thank you for that, for tuning in and inviting us into your homes. Sadly, journalism has changed a lot since I first stepped into a newsroom, and I'll be honest, I don't like the direction it's going. The media needs more balance in coverage and a wider range of viewpoints represented in every newsroom, at every level, and in each position. In the past few years, I haven't felt proud to be a member of the media. I'm sure there are other journalists out there who feel the same way. I found myself reading news copy that I didn't believe was fully truthful or only told part of the story. And I began to feel that I was contributing to the fear and division in this country by continuing on in this profession. It's been a serious struggle for me, and I no longer want to do this job anymore. So I've decided the time is right to do something else, and I'm leaving Fox 10. I thank Fox for their understanding as I've come to this decision, and I am grateful for the opportunities they provided for me to cover so many big stories over the years. As I close this chapter of my career, there will probably be some hit pieces written about me. Not everyone is dedicated to telling the truth, but thankfully many of you have figured that out. I promise you, if you hear it from my lips, it will be truthful. It is scary walking away from a good job and a successful career, especially in difficult times. I know God has my back and will guide me to work that aligns with my values. I feel such a deep connection to all of you wonderful Fox 10 viewers here in Arizona and those I've met and interviewed over the years. Thank you so much for your trust and friendship all these years. I will keep in touch, and I hope you will do the same.
All right. So now we're going to go through this, and I'm going to narrate a little bit because we're going to have to read in between the lines about what this woman is saying. It's on its surface kind of not as important as it's striking me as. I had to actually listen to it a couple of times before I started understanding that. Well, let's just make a couple of assumptions here, right? Without going through any of the material. She's obviously conservative. It doesn't matter about political party. Let's take that out. Doesn't matter whether she's a Republican or a Democrat. First of all, it doesn't matter whether anybody's a Republican or Democrat anymore. It's about ideology. Let's talk about it. It's not about political party anymore. It's about ideology. So she's obviously a conservative. She's obviously a religious person. I don't know what her religion is, but she has a cross on, and she says that not only will, she doesn't just thank God for everything that's happened in her life, but she says that she is confident God will direct her to her next phase of life, right? So she is a practicing religious person, most likely some form of Christian, right? So we have a Christian, conservative-leaning news anchor in a state where there's been a lot of problems in Arizona over the last election, right? And she says a lot of things in this that when you start to understand that she is one of the few conservative personalities in news, right? And she's just like a John Voight or a Kevin Sorbo or whatever, because those are the Hollywood guys that have been blackballed because they're conservatives. But when she's talking to her audience, there's a couple of things we got to keep in mind. She's talking to the people that she feels like are not being represented in the media. And that would be people like her. Okay. So she never comes out and says that this is like an ideological thing. This is a political thing. You could almost read it as like a diversity thing. You could almost say she's saying we need more diversity in all these places, but that's not what she's arguing for. She's arguing for diversity, yes, but she's arguing for diversity of thought. We can allow all the diversity in all things, except if you think differently than me, then you're a effing Nazi, right? So they don't like diversity of thought. So she's talking to those people. She's talking to us. If you're a middle of the road or slightly conservative person and you have religious values and you're just, quote, quote, flyover country, that's who she's talking to here. And she says some very specific things to us. And I want to go back through them and highlight them for you so you can kind of see where I'm going with this. Alrighty then. So here we are again. And I'm just going to stop this and trying to give some of my thoughts about what she's saying here as we go through this.
Hi, everybody. I've got some news I want to share with you since so many of you have sent me messages while I've been on leave asking me how I'm doing or when I'll be back.
That's the kind of support that very few people and news personalities get. That kind of support is happening to her because of an instance that she got caught on a hot mic saying F something about in regards to the coverage of Trump, right? So she's received all that positive outpouring from fellow conservative people because she got put on leave for getting caught saying the F word, all right?
Many of you left kind messages telling me that you miss me. I appreciate all of the messages, and I miss you too. This time away from work has given me a chance to reflect on my work. 22 years ago, Fox10 hired me and paired me up with John Hook to bring you the news every night. Shortly after becoming a team, we jumped in the ratings and we've held the #1 spot for almost all of our time together. Anyone who's worked in TV news can tell you that is not an easy feat.
And it's not an easy feat, but what does happen often is that the more conservative personalities in media tend to blow up. It's not because more people in America are conservative than liberal. That's not the case. But it's because so many people in the media are of the liberal ideology that when conservative people who represent half of the voting population in this country find somebody who talks like them and has the same ideology as them, they all flock to them. So the fact that Fox is always #1 in the ratings and the more conservative radio talk shows and podcasts and whatever, and even on YouTube seem to be so popular, it's because conservatives only have so many places to go. If they actually allowed conservative radio, conservative YouTube, if they allowed an equal playing field, then you wouldn't see things like Fox being the #1 news station for over a decade, because it's just Fox was the only place to go. And now there's going to be some competition for Fox News because they've gone left, and now you have naturally competition to that's popped up like Newsmax and OAN. But those networks are under the kinds of attacks that I'm talking about. They're trying to suppress those networks so that they cannot actually get a footing. And what is that? They're trying to suppress those people's beliefs and ideology. They don't want conservatives to have an outlet. But the problem is the more they stamp out like whack-a-mole, the more they stamp out these people, the more conservatives are all just going to go flock to somebody else. And listen, if there's only one conservative voice in media, then that one conservative voice is going to be the #1 rated news anchor on television for the history of the world. The only way you can start to actually compete against them is if you allow competing conservative anchors on the television, which they do not do. If CNN and MSNBC put a dedicated conservative talk show and gave them an hour on their news every day, you would be surprised how many conservatives would go and watch that show. It's not that people just hate MSNBC and they hate CNN, or people just hate Fox News. People are pretty much jaded on all aspects of the news. They know it's mostly bullcrap, but they just really have a hard time having somebody with the complete ideology as them talk to them about the current events, what happened, when they're not seeing things the way that that person sees them. It's just not how they see it. Of course, the days of reporting objective news are long gone in the wastebasket, so that's not even something we can ever look to get back, I don't think.
And it's one I'm extremely proud of. And I thank you for that, for tuning in and inviting us into your homes. Sadly, journalism has changed a lot since I first stepped into a newsroom. And I'll be honest, I don't like the direction it's going.
So journalism has changed a lot since she first stepped into a newsroom. And that was what? 22 years ago. So like 1999. So she started working just before the Patriot Act and just before all of the Smith Modernization Act and all the things that have been going on in this country. And let's just imagine this. She was okay reporting through all the bullcrap lying that went on through the Iraq War, through the Afghan War. All of that she did without resigning. But it's just now she's had enough and she's fed up because of just these past few years.
The media needs more balance in coverage and a wider range of viewpoints.
Balance in coverage, as in it needs to cover the same events in the same way. So like a BLM protest should be treated the same way as a open up the country protest, whatever. There shouldn't be double standards, right? It's pretty basic. And you need to have a diversity of thought. There should be people who think differently. It shouldn't be everyone in lockstep in the entirety of the news media. Wow, what a revolutionary idea.
Represented in every newsroom, at every level, and in each position.
And what she's saying there is that this media industrial complex is completely subverted. She just told you, in literally from the bottom all the way to the top, we need to get some diversity of thought into these positions. So in a backwards way, she's telling you that isn't happening now. And every position, from the guy who's washing the floors and polishing the windows all the way up to the CEO, we need more diversity of thought in every position throughout the entirety of the system. And so she's telling you the whole thing is garbage.
In the past few years, I haven't felt proud to be a member of the media.
In the past few years, so you'd say like what, 3 to 5? That would be like since the Donald Trump presidency. She hasn't been proud to do her job. This is a woman who has been very successful at her job. You know, not being a national broadcast person is something that a lot of people don't want to do. A lot of people want to stay local. A lot of people want to be the best in their state. And that's what she was doing. She did it for 2 decades. But she just said it. I'm not proud of my work anymore.
I'm sure there are other journalists out there who feel the same way.
So even though the entirety of the system is subverted, she is sure, as a 22-year veteran of the media industrial complex, that there are others in the media like her.
I found myself reading news copy that I didn't believe was fully truthful.
Now that is just a bombshell. You have a broadcaster sitting in front of the television saying that the 4 a.m. talking points, the stuff they were putting on her teleprompter, the B-roll, and all of the pre-packaged governmental stories that are given to the local television stations, like we've gone through by like Sinclair Broadcasting, the stuff where they're all reading the same thing. She's saying that she found herself only in the past few years. Remember now, she said she worked for 22 years, but only in the past few years had she become not proud to do her job and so jaded. So in the past few years, this has really gotten out of control.
Or only told part of the story.
Half-truths and no-truths. Just think about that. Over the past few years, she has felt that a lot of the stuff that's come across her teleprompter has been incorrect or half-correct.
And I began to feel that I was contributing to the fear and division in this country by continuing on in this profession.
And that's exactly what they're all doing. They are all contributing to the fear and division in America. And I would go one step further and say that they're not contributing to it. They're creating it. They're the number one instigator of all issues of a social nature in our country. All of them. They're all perpetrated by the media.
It's been a serious struggle for me, and I no longer want to do this job anymore.
It is at that point that I really realized she really is upset about this. And when you think about it, of course she is. Nobody becomes as successful as she has, gotten to where she's had, and then just turned around and walked away from it because she was no longer proud to do her job. So of course she's upset, like you would think so, logically. But here I heard it in her voice. She really is.
So I've decided the time is right to do something else, and I'm leaving Fox 10. I thank Fox for their understanding as I've come to this decision, and I am grateful for the opportunities they provided for me to cover so many big stories over the years. As I close this chapter of my career, there will probably be some hit pieces written about me.
Imagine that. So here's this, again, 22-year veteran insider of the media industrial complex. And what she's telling you is there's going to be hit pieces written about me strictly because I'm walking away from the media. How is that not a gang? What is she? You're not, once you're in, you ain't allowed out. Does she have to get beat out? Like, what's the deal here? That's exactly what's happening. Like, if you want out of the gang, we have to completely destroy you. That's unbelievable. And she's saying, hey, it's incoming. So just so you guys know, when somebody does something like this, the media slanders them.
Not everyone is dedicated to telling the truth, but thankfully many of you have figured that out.
This is the part that really keyed me in, that she wasn't talking to everyone. She's talking to the people who have figured out the truth about the media over the past few years. Now, who's that? Because let's be real, you have everything split now, right? You have people of a certain ideology that are starting to realize that the entirety of the media lies about everything. I mean, for crying out loud, most of the MAGA movement won't even watch Fox News anymore. They don't trust Newsmax. They don't trust OAN. This is why the two candidates lost in Georgia. Because MAGA didn't go vote for those people. Why on earth would MAGA go vote for those people? That's the reason why the NFL's viewership is so down. Because they don't want to watch football. Nobody's going to address the fact that they're not watching football. The NFL's viewership can go through the floor, but nobody will ever talk about it, but they don't want to watch it anymore. There's nowhere for them to go. And you're finding that in a lot of different aspects in the media. And it actually all comes back to Operation ChokePoint. That episode's coming in a couple of days.
I promise you, if you hear it from my lips, it will be truthful.
That's what she's doing now, right? So we can hear an incoming podcast, an incoming YouTube channel, some kind of independent position at a Newsmax or an OAN. Maybe she's going to be part of the new MAGA channel. I don't know. But you can hear that okay. If she wasn't going to be speaking words into our ears because she stepped down as a broadcaster, then she wouldn't say that, right? And she said, in the future, when you hear things coming from my lips, they will be the truth. Which means she's assuming in the future we will hear something from her lips.
It is scary walking away from a good job and a successful career, especially in difficult times.
I agree. However, again, I tend to think that there's a plan.
I know God has my back and will guide me to work that aligns with my values.
So, as a Christian, working in the media industrial complex no longer aligned with her values.
I feel such a deep connection to all of you wonderful Fox 10 viewers here in Arizona and those I've met and interviewed over the years. Thank you so much for your trust and friendship all these years. I will keep in touch, and I hope you will do the same.
Okay, so that's her message to all her people. That's the message that I heard, the undertones, that I heard her speaking to a specific group of people. Those are the people who now know the entire media industrial complex is full of shit. Excuse my language. So she said there were going to be hit pieces wrote against her. Well, what was she talking about? Let's go look, see if there were any. Okay, so yeah, I wouldn't call this a hit piece, but I would say, I don't know, like USA Today was nicer to Matt Lauer when he stepped back. Let me just point out a few points to you. Lake, who has been involved with various controversies over the last few years, announced her departure in a video posted on Twitter early Tuesday morning. In the video, she says she didn't like the way journalism has changed since she began working in the news. She had been on leave for personal reasons and cut off air since beginning of January, she tweeted earlier in the year. Lake declined to comment Tuesday beyond what she said in the video. Fox 10 did not respond to requests for comments. So you can already hear within the first paragraph, instead of talking about her career and saying that she's moving on, we're going to talk about her various controversies. So over 22 years, there must be a lot. It goes on to quote her, and it says, all the things that she said about not being proud about being in the media. And the response by this author in USA Today is this: perhaps, while no one can pretend journalists are perfect, there are also members of the media who are justifiably proud of their work in the last few years. For example, when it came to reporting on former President Donald Trump and the 2020 election. So, this author's example of excellent journalism over the past few years is the journalism done over Donald Trump and the 2020 election. I would say two of the most biased, largest screw-ups of the media on both sides of the aisle. It doesn't matter what political ideology you have. Everybody got it wrong. Everyone. Not a single person got it right. The other thing is, nobody knows what happened. I no longer want to do this job anymore is her quote, and their response to her quote on that. While Lake has done her share of responsible journalism, okay, so for her 20 years of responsible journalism, she gets half of a sentence cut by a comma. And then the second half of that sentence is, the past few years of her career have had notable controversies. Wow, notable controversies. I wonder what happened. Lake shared disinformation about the First Amendment after Twitter and Facebook suspended Trump's accounts for his posting of misleading information and lies after the words inspired the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. Now it becomes very clear why Lake is resigning, and it becomes very clear who she's talking to, and it becomes very clear what she's talking about, does it not? So that's the first controversy. She tweeted disinformation about the First Amendment. And when we write a piece on her when she quits, we're not going to talk about anything good she did. We're going to talk about that tweet. It wasn't a First Amendment issue, despite conservative talking points meant to frame it as one. It was simply a private company holding its users to standards they've agreed to. So once again, the private company argument. It's getting so old. Why are they using the private company argument? Well, again, to foreshadow my upcoming episode, it's because of Operation ChokePoint. What they're doing is they know the government cannot enforce these new rules because they know that they're unconstitutional. So they've created a system that forces private entities into doing it themselves. And when the government is motivating a private entity to isolate and silence and do all the things that these companies are doing, that is a violation of the First Amendment. What's the next horrible controversy she was involved in? In 2020, Lake tweeted a debunked CV video calling it, quote, one of the most honest CV briefings I've seen to date, close quote. When YouTube removed the video, citing various violations of its terms of service, Lake replied to her original tweet to note that it was still available on Facebook. Unbelievable! This is the video of Dr. Erickson that came out back in 2020. You know who Dr. Erickson is. So a second tweet. These tweets now, a tweet is a full-on controversy. Certainly a reason not to look at the other 20 years of her career and give her a nice send-off to a person who's obviously dedicated to their job. No, we need to talk about these two tweets. Why? Because one of them dared to defend President Trump when they silenced him off of every social media platform at the same time. And the second reason, because she tweeted that Dr. Erickson was the most honest doctor she had ever seen talk about the CV to date. These are her controversies. That wasn't balance or an effort to feature a wider range of viewpoints. It was dangerous misinformation. And so that's the response to her saying that a diversity of thought, diversity of viewpoints needs to be in the system of media from the bottom to the top, and it's not there. Their response is that her opinions, her viewpoints, they're not actually legitimate viewpoints or opinions. They're dangerous misinformation. And I hate to tell you guys this, but anything that counters the mainstream media's narrative is dangerous misinformation. And the idea that that means that you shouldn't be allowed to hear it is disgusting. And the fact that so many people in this country agree with that is equally disgusting. What is going on? In 2019, okay, so now we have a 2021 tweet, a 2020 tweet. Now let's hear what she did in 2019. In 2019, Lake was off the air temporarily after, unaware, a Facebook Live event had started early. She uttered the F word accidentally while disparaging the publication The Phoenix New Times. Oh my God. She said the F word in a hot mic on a live stream she didn't know was live streaming. So here are our controversies. That gives this author the justification to not write a single thing about her accomplishments in her 22 years as an anchor. Instead, he's going to write about her, quote, various controversies. And they equal 2 tweets and a Facebook Live accident. And then it talks about how she had problems with various stories that she's been forced to deliver on air. Lake does not detail any examples or say why she read anything she thought wasn't truthful or complete. She does, however, address those in media whose work she doesn't agree with. They basically just completely disregard everything she said about it because she didn't cite any specific samples. And then they say, well, if you knew that stuff to be false, then why did you read it? So it's kind of like basically like if you're going to snitch on me, I'm going to snitch on you, right? So she's like, they're putting false information into the teleprompters and I'm reading it, so I quit. And they're like, but you read it? Legitimate. That's what they're saying. Lake does not address her future plans in the video, but says God will, quote, guide me to work that aligns with my values. The quote around the God comment, they're taking a shot at her for her religion here. You take it or leave it, but that's what they're doing. So that's how USA Today chose to cover this story. They don't choose to expand on her ideas or see what's going on. They don't go to look at the other 18 or 19 years of her service to find maybe just one thing that she did that's good in this world? No, they zoomed right over 19 years of her career and stopped at her first controversial tweet. This isn't a celebration of a person who's leaving the media and moving on to different and better things. This is a justification of everything she accused the media of. This is the last time that they're going to silence her, once again, about her viewpoints. So congratulations to Kari Lake. She's got, more heart than the vast majority of the people who are willing to take their six-figure paycheck and sit in front of the television and tell outright lies to everyone. It's one thing to never get into that, but to have it and get into it and to be running inside the system and getting your paycheck and raising your family and really be going in the system, to take the time to stop and to leave, it takes a lot of work. Maybe she'll have a YouTube channel. She's in the media, so she's probably way more liberal than I am, but I don't care as long as they don't have the point of view that everything I say is disinformation and everything they say is correct, because I couldn't stand those kids growing up and I don't like them as an adult. It's okay to be wrong, guys. It's okay to be wrong. That's how we grow. Just so you know, if you always think you're right, you're wrong. Anyways. So yeah, this episode on the Operation ChokePoint, it keeps molding and changing and growing and shrinking, and I'm kind of wondering how best to present it to you guys. So it's going to be a couple of days, and I'm sorry for that, but I will get it to you guys. And it's a very interesting episode because Operation ChokePoint, although it was ended at the beginning of the Trump administration, it was all done through executive order, and so of course it's right back to where it was now. And there's a reason for that. And the pressure that we're seeing applied to media personalities and to businesses and to 501c3s that all have the various commonalities of being conservative, pro-gun, anti-abortion, they're all being hit. They're using all of the various tentacles of the federal government to attack people that they disagree with. And with the Operation ChokePoint, they started by pressuring banks to stop payment processing for payday loans, coin dealers, the sex industry. And you guys know, they always start there, but then it always moves out of there, It always moves out of there. So now they're using Operation ChokePoint against ammunition sellers. They'll use Operation ChokePoint when they pressure Amazon to kick Parler off of their servers, when they pressure Apple and Google to delete Alex Jones on the same day. These are all actions that are perpetrated by the federal government through corporations that they're using as their proxy. And it's insane because the corporations by proxy use the government whenever they need it. I need this plot of land, I need this regulation lifted, I need this or that. And then the government uses the private corporations whenever they need it. I need this person silenced, I need that person deplatformed, I need this person not to be able to get a loan. And that's the trade-off. That's the cycle. We will do for you the things that you need, giving you land and giving you tax benefits and doing all of these things. But whenever we need to silence somebody because they're starting to see what's going on, then we're going to need you guys to step in and do the silencing and the deplatforming and the digital deleting, the isolation. That's what's happening. It's a trade-off. It's a bit of a rant. Sorry, guys, that's a bit of a rant. But like, share, subscribe to the channel. Any way to buy me a cup of coffee or leave me a tip if you'd like to do so is pinned comment below. I appreciate all of your support. I'll talk to you guys soon. Peace.